spirit of the French Revolution. By the time he died in 1827, he was already a romantic myth, and that is what he stayed through the 19th century. Beethoven the demigod, a combination of suffering Christ figure and demonic icon. In his person, rough, crude, and fractious. In his music, everything from crude to transcendent. He became the quintessential romantic genius in an age that established a cult of genius that lingers on, for well and ill. Critical reframings and reinterpretings are inevitable, and, like everything in the arts, they reflect the temper of their times. After the lingering decay of romantic myths in the 20th century, writing on Beethoven during the past decades has largely risen from the Academy. So it reflects the parade of fashions and shibboleths of that industry. Many present-day books concern ideas about Beethoven rather than Beethoven himself. The assorted theoretical postures of late 20th century academe took some heavy shots at him, but do not seem to have dislodged him from his unfortunate pedestal, which I believe lodges him too far from us. I suspect many people still feel that in some ways the most effective Beethoven biography remains the massive late 19th century one by Alexander Wheelock Thayer. That American writer set out with the goal of assembling every available fact about Beethoven and putting it down as clearly as possible. "I fight for no theories and cherish no prejudices," Thayer wrote. "My sole point of view is the truth." In the 1960s, the book was corrected and updated, with a similarly direct agenda by Eliot Forbes. For me, it is within Thayer's Victorian language that Beethoven casts the strongest shadow as a person, where I catch glimpses of him walking down the street, joking with friends, thumping the table as he composes, tearing into his fish dinner. Without aspiring to the voluminousness of Thayer, the book you are listening to was written in his spirit. Now and then, in the course of an artist's biographical history, it comes time to strip away the decades of accumulated theories and postures, and look at the subject as clearly and plainly as possible, without prejudices and preconceptions. That as biographers we all have agendas, both known and unknown to us, does not change the value and necessity of getting back to the human reality of a towering figure. This book is a biography of Beethoven, the man and musician, not the myth. I want the book to stay on the ground, in his time, looking at him as directly as possible as he walks, talks, writes, rages, composes. We will see that Beethoven was, in some ways, a hard man. The troubling parts of his personality, the squalor he lived in, his growing paranoia and delusions of persecution, his misanthropy, and later his double dealings in business will be on display here roughly in the proportion that they were on display in his life. Likewise, the plaintive history of his deafness and illness and his failed love affairs. Still, I believe that in the end, there was no real meanness in Beethoven. He aspired to be a good, noble, honorable person who served humanity. At times he could be entirely lovable and delightful in his quirks and puns and metaphors and notions, even in his lusty socio-political rants. There was something exalted about him that was noted first in his teens and often thereafter. He was utterly sure of himself and his gift, but no less self-critical and without sentimentality concerning his work. To the degree that I have a conscious agenda, it is this. I am myself a composer, both before and after being a biographer. So this is a composer's eye view of a composer written for the general public. When I look at Beethoven, I see a man sitting at a table, playing the piano, walking in fields and woods doing what I and a great many others have done, crafting music one note, one phrase, one section at a time. I hear the scratch of a quill pen on lined music paper. I see a work coming into focus in page after tumultuous page of sketches. I see a man in the creative trance all of us work in. But Beethoven's trance deeper than most, and the results incomparably fine and